If you are expecting maybe Druckmann to interrogate the role Israel has played in overall, historically and currently in Gaza, I think you will be disappointed in terms of interrogating Israel. If you are looking at it from recognizing that Druckmann is interrogating his own personal bias that he had to wrestle through and recognizing how he was dehumanizing Muslim people in Gaza and where the story sort of unfolds through that, you might find that more rewarding.
I think what I would say to that is I think that's an incomplete story because those two things are innately tied. Like the reason why you were raised to dehumanize them is because of the state of Israel and because of the role that it has played in popularizing that idea, not just for you, but for people around the world, around the globe. Crazy Stupid Podcast.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time watching, we'd love it if you could hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell so that you are aware of when we post things.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Crazy Stupid Podcast. My name is Esther.
And I'm Adrian.
And we're here to talk about The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 4.
Another good one.
It's heating up.
Another good one.
It's definitely like a transition episode. Like they're transitioning us into what this next arc of the season is going to be.
Oh, yeah.
And I have a feeling none of us are ready.
People who play the game know like this is where things start to really escalate and essentially never slow down.
Yeah,
for the most part.
That's what I'm picking up on. Like this is one of those times it's like, oh, so this is going to be the last moment we feel peace. This is the last time that these two characters will experience joy. I get it. You guys are letting us relish in it because you're about to rip it away from us. I know your games, The Last of Us. I learned from season 1.
Yeah. So this episode, we get a lot more backstory and context for the Seraphites and the Wolves, or WLF, in The Last of Us. You're starting to get a sense of the politics that are existing in their conflict and in their war. A lot of the inspiration for Last of Us 2 came from Neil Druckmann's own experience in Israel. Several years ago, Neil Druckmann talked to, I think it was the Washington Post, and then Vice, the news station, also picked that up also, where he talks about an experience that he has where I guess 2 Israeli soldiers were unalived. And his experience growing up in Israel, he mentions what he would describe as like very evil feelings that he had in reaction to gaining that news. And then immediately following that, Druckmann talks about the shame he felt for those thoughts ever like creeping into his own emotions. And through that, really, you can say is sort of the ethos of The Last of Us 2. So what we're sort of seeing, though, in the conflict with like the Seraphites and the Wolves, you are seeing, though, some allegories that are clear parallels to what we're seeing.
Yeah, it's like... Yeah, like once you see it, you're like, oh, like you can't unsee it.
I don't know Neil Druckmann's politics. I will say there are parts of this Last of Us lore, there are accurate parts to it. WLF clearly has a difference in power dynamics. They have a difference in like the force that they use. Now, obviously, violence is happening on both sides of the conflict with the Seraphites and WLF, but mentioning that I felt like was necessary and a little important. There was something I felt like was important to know. There's a couple of things that have sort of bled over so far that I've been trying to hold back and mentioning because it wasn't time yet. But one of the directors in this episode says that like WLF essentially became just as bad as Fedra, the group that they were trying to escape from and build something better, right? Mm-hmm. But then even earlier in the season, Craig Mazin had this moment where he talks about this theme of like, you cannot have this catastrophic thing that you do and not expect a retaliation of people. And so all of that, I think they're exploring those feelings on like an individual level, obviously with like Abby and Joel, and then they're exploring it on a larger level with the Seraphites and the Wolves. I don't know if I'm in the best place to say if he handles the allegory well. I have seen some people, even some Palestinian people that play the game, they're like,
It seems like at worst, what we'll get is something very both sides.
Yes. I do also think, I don't know if Druckmann is trying to give commentary on the war there in general. I think he's exploring the shame he felt in the feelings that showed up at moments for him if that makes sense. I think if people try to go in and try to feel like is the allegory going to be as honest as we need it to be, I think they will be a little disappointed.
I'll be interested to see how things play out. I'm already starting to see, I think, some things that pro-Palestinian people might take issue with. The conversation that Isaac has with Malcolm, the guy that he was interrogating, they have that thing where he's like, well, we did this because you guys broke the truce. He's like, well, because you guys broke the truce. We did this because you did this. And there's like, and he says it's like Isaac has this comment of like, I'm not going to have the chicken or egg conversation with you right now. So like the implication there is that like, they don't know how this thing really started, right? It's like both of these sides are just now responding to each other.
Yeah.
I think that's an accurate representation of the narrative that some people currently have about what's happening over there. Perhaps that is the narrative that Neil Druckmann has adopted or was, raised to believe. That though isn't accurate. Like we do actually, like we know definitively how it started. I also think the depiction of the Seraphites, it feels like we are supposed to feel like they are more different from us than the wolves.
I would argue that's probably Druckmann's experience and how he was taught to maybe view Palestinian people in Gaza. I'm not trying to like give him an out. I think I'm simply trying to make more sense of like what is it that he was trying to express here. And I think what he is saying, I was taught to dehumanize them naturally from a very early age. If you are expecting maybe Druckmann to interrogate the role Israel has played in overall, historically and currently in Gaza, I think you will be disappointed in terms of interrogating Israel. If you are looking at it from recognizing that Druckmann is interrogating his own personal bias that he had to wrestle through and recognizing how he was dehumanizing Muslim people in Gaza and where the story sort of unfolds through that, you might find that more rewarding.
I think what I would say to that is I think that's an incomplete story because those two things are innately tied. Like the reason why you were raised to dehumanize them is because of the state of Israel and because of the role that it has played in popularizing that idea, not just for you, but for people around the world, around the globe. I think it would be fair to call that a failing on his part. In that instance, it doesn't mean that the story is not worthwhile or worth telling. It doesn't mean that important messages cannot be gleaned from it. But I do think it's incomplete. And if the show does not, because I mean, it's been some years since the game came out. We don't know how his own feelings have progress since then.
Yeah.
But I think if the show does not progress past what it seems the game did, then I think it shows some limitations in his ability to be honest about this particular
I think that's
issue.
fair. I will say at least I don't know what they'll do later on, but the introduction of the Seraphites was a lot more brutal in the video games. And I do wonder if maybe Druckmann and Craig Mazin sat down and said, hey, we may want to revisit this just due to how conversations have moved in the last year and a half, 2 years. And if we really want to get our point across, maybe adapting it identical to our initial introduction to the Seraphites might make the message get lost a little bit.
I'm very intrigued by Isaac. Yeah. Jeffrey Wright, man.
Ooh. You want to talk about screen presence?
Yo. I really, really want to get to know his character a lot better.
Yeah.
We were introduced to him without seeing him earlier on with Abby, I assume, when she was talking to Joel and she was like, my commander or whatever told me not. I'm assuming that was Isaac.
It is.
He's presented to us first as a character that has, it seems, some sort of like a, I don't know if a strong moral compass is the right word. I think a better word maybe might be rigid. And so we see that in the way that Abby describes him as, a person who's like, you don't hurt people that can't defend themselves. Mm-hmm. And then when we have that flashback of him, it's clear that he takes issue with the dehumanization of the citizens that Fedra is very comfortable with, obviously, and he is willing to take violent action to fight against that. But then when we see him in the present day, it's like the rigidity of the moral compass is still there, but the clarity is not, or something.
Yeah, I think it's the hardening of like there's a, whether it's cynicism or nihilism, I think has taken over and maybe altered whatever code he felt he had.
Yeah.
You know.
So I'm interested to get to spend more time with him. I know that he's going to be just a fascinating character. I don't know if he's likable, I don't know, but he'll be fascinating for sure.
Oh yeah, I was very, very happy that they decided to bring him back. I thought that was just the perfect decision that they could have made for season 2, because he's not like a main character, right? Like he's not going to get as much screen time as like Ellie or Abby or Dina, but his presence is so significant in the game. And they were correct. You need someone who will have a smaller amount of screen time, but has to cast like a very large shadow over the story. You need an actor that can sort of bring that to life. It can't be a no-name actor. It can't be like a C-list actor. It has to be someone that is seasoned, that people will recognize, that is successful. Like, he just had an Oscar nom,
Yeah.
And so like all of that, I think it matters and is important, I want to talk a little bit about this important scene in the show when Ellie is singing Take On Me. I think the show allowed us to grieve Joel a little bit more, but this moment in the video game for us allowed us to just take a pause from the playing of the video game, of fighting people and clickers, and to just kind of sit with like, this is still a flawed human that is mourning. And it's a flawed human that is not comfortable still in being vulnerable with people. And we see that with Ellie. As much as she cares about Dina, she didn't want Dina seeing her crying over Joel's, in the jacket in the previous episode. Something that I saw online when they sort of talked about like the meaning of the song was where they said that the song's core message is about taking a chance and exposing oneself and being willing to be seen for who you truly are. Especially seen with love. We see that obviously with Dina, right? It's explored. That's why she gets super emotional with the fact that like she probably feels like she's imperfect, whether it's due to her own sexuality, whether it's getting pregnant and the messy relationship that she had with Jesse, and then hoping that Ellie will still accept her. Do you feel the weight of what everyone is experiencing, but they're not comfortable in being vulnerable to say it? You know that Ellie is still desperately grieving Joel. You see that Dina gets emotional because she doesn't want to share that she's pregnant. And by the end of this episode, they finally get a chance to be honest with each other, to be vulnerable. And that's where you see like what Craig Mazin said, the love for Dina and Ellie, like take another level. Which I think they did a really good job in acting that out. I
read it really as like, whether you guys knew it or not about the other person, you both knew for yourselves that there was something that you were not telling them, right? Like there was a part of you that you were not being fully open with the other person about, right? For Ellie, the fact that she's immune. For Dina, the fact that she's pregnant. And then also, of course, tied up in all that, just their feelings for each other in general. They had to let each other fully into all parts of themselves in order for them to both feel comfortable taking the risk of being all in on this relationship. I think it goes back to what we were talking about in the very first episode with Gail. There was a quote about like secrecy, right? And like hiding things and just like the damage that does to relationships. Yeah. And I think that this is kind of like a callback to that. Like a lot of the season has to do with just being open and honest with the people in your lives, with yourself. Like you were saying with Neil Druckmann, being honest with himself about the things that he had internalized about other people. A lot of this season seems to be just about like complete and brutal honesty about like who you are as a person, the good and the bad, and the ways that either lack of honesty or that acceptance of honesty impacts your connection with other people.
Just some other things that I feel like were kind of cool to think about. One, as like a video game player, I love the thing that Dina does when she's counting the infected around. In the game, you don't really have that. There is a mechanism that you can use that's almost kind of like sonar-esque. You press it and the screen goes black and white.
And you can see the figures.
Yes. Yeah. Especially the ones that are moving, that are making sound. It shows up for the people. But obviously, you can't really display that in the show. So finding another way for them to keep track of how many infected or in the area. I thought that was really genius. The second thing that I was kind of thinking about, this is more so just like a pop cultural thing. It's kind of wild to think about how the outbreak for them starts out like around 2003. Bro, there's a lot of things that the people in their world didn't like, never had the chance to experience. Like there's like albums that they never got a chance to listen to.
I mean, like all of social media didn't happen.
Oh my goodness!
Like they don't have any concept for that. Not really, at least.
Like they never got to see The Dark Knight, Avengers, the MCU doesn't exist. They never got to listen to like iconic albums that came out over the last like 25 years. That's just because like they had this album. They had like Bob Marley. I saw Ja Rule, which is like, bruh, y'all are like stuck artistically at a very specific point in our world's history, and I just found that kind of funny.
I also got a little chuckle at these two queer girls in Seattle seeing pride flags and having absolutely no clue what they're looking at. I was like, that is so funny.
So hilarious, man.
But it's also that I was like, oh yeah, they've spent this entire show in like the Midwest. I'm like, oh, so they have not been to the remnants of a liberal city?
No. They wouldn't even know. Yeah.
That is so funny.
I want to pivot just a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about Ironheart, the TV show that's supposed to come out for Marvel. See, that reaction is exactly what I wanted to talk about.
When is that coming out?
Dude, I think it's supposed to come out in like June.
So we should be seeing promo.
A month out though is crazy.
We should be seeing promo. And when does Fantastic Four come out?
It comes out July, which we've already started seeing them do. Listen, yeah. I don't think they should have released this joint in between Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four. Personally, I don't want to assume anything about Marvel. I do feel like when this show flops, because I hope it doesn't, but the fact that it hasn't been marketed to me is going to make me feel like people don't know that Ironheart's coming out.
Yeah.
This is going to feed into that narrative though of like diverse shows are going to be unpopular, but the reality is like you didn't market this well, Marvel. Like
you didn't market it, but also when they don't market things well, that is almost always a signal that they know they didn't give it their all.
It's so irritating.
They know they didn't do what they had to do on this one, because that's with Marvel, when they know that they got something good and they ate it up, when they know, they're going to put that thing in front of you, right? Like they knew Thunderbolts was good. Yeah. They know Fantastic Four is going to be good. I mean, we ain't saying it yet, but I feel like it's going to be good. They're confident in that. And so they promote it a lot. Yeah. The projects that they don't promote oftentimes end up being the ones that perhaps they did not invest into as much as they maybe should have.
You're seeing it with Ironheart. You saw it with Echo, which was frustrating. Even with Shang-Chi being like, some of the language that Bob Chapek used were like, oh, this is going to be like an experiment for the theater experience. This was coming a little bit out of COVID. And I remember even Simu Liu had to come and be like, bro, why are we using our movie as the experiment? Use something else. So I feel like that has been like kind of irritating. And I remember somebody in our comment section for our Thunderbolts review was like, I don't know if I want to go watch this movie for reasons like this, and how Marvel has kind of treated some of their movies and TV shows that are led with characters of color.
Yeah, she's a great actress. I've seen her in a couple of things since Wakanda Forever. Yeah.
So we'll see. Would love to hear what you all think. Y'all plan on watching it or not? Let us know what you think about this week's episode of The Last of Us. Also, we'd love to know what your thoughts are in the comments below. And with that, we will see you all next time. Take care, everyone. Peace.